tere tulemast kõigile. Loodetavasti on kõik oma hommikused asjatoimetused jõudnud ära teha, haaranud kohvi ja mul on hea meel, et teada anda, et Telia on alustanud sellest aastast küberturvalisuse veebiseminaride sarja, kus me tutvustame erinevaid küberturvalisuse lahendusi ja räägime olulistel küberturvalisuse teemadel. Meie esimene webinar toimub koos Pointsharpiga ja täna räägime me Access Managementist. Meie esineja on Mika Hulgren, kes on Pointsharpi juhtiv tootejuht ja küberturbe ekspert. Selleks, et meil webinar hästi õnnestuks, hoiame palun kõik oma mikrofonid vaigistatud ja kui teil tekib küsimuse või kommentaare, siis palun kirjutage need alla Q&A kasti, mitte kirjutage chatti, et kõik küsimused saavad vastuse, kas siis webinari jooksul või me vastame neile hiljem. Ühtlasi saadame me teile ka järelvaatamiseks kogu webinari. Ja nüüd ma annaksin siis sõna üle Mikale. Please, Mika, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Just give me a few seconds to hopefully bring my presentation to the right screen and also share that with you. Just give me one sec. Let's see, it's always the thing when we're doing presentations, right? I don't know if everyone sees the screen, but I hope you all see the screen now. And if you do, you should see a very big Pointsharp logo in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, all good.
All good. Thanks a lot for that confirmation. So I know that I'm not speaking without anyone seeing anything. First of all, thanks to everyone for joining and giving me the opportunity to speak about this. So who am I? Mika Hulgren, as Thomas so eloquently presented. I am the lead product manager for the Access Management suite of Pointsharp. I've been working with the company for too long, since 2007, with a break where I was doing some penetration tests and IT auditoring, helping mainly authorities with their infrastructure. So that's quickly about me. While it's a fancy title, the lead product manager, basically I do try to keep in touch with everything that is technical about the products and really focus on the technical aspects of everything that I do within these products, or we do, I should say. I only think it's fair also to give a very short presentation of Pointsharp as well. Some of you might have heard of us, and in that case, that might be repetition to you. But we are a European cybersecurity company that is part of our vision, I would say. We're very focused on the European market. We stress that we are European because in today's landscape, that is important. We also, our main focus is within the IAM space and handling identities and giving access to, the digital workspace. And we try to do this perhaps a bit different than other cybersecurity companies or vendors, I should say. I shouldn't say companies, I should say vendors, because it doesn't really matter if you are a company that is aiming for the skies, that you have a clear cloud strategy, that you're very focused on SaaS applications and you want to go there. And even if you're far along your cloud journey, if you have one where you have a cloud first approach, if you're that kind of company, or if you're a company with the feet on the ground, where you keep most of your things, or maybe everything on premise, this might be because of security or privacy concerns, or regulations. We position ourselves to be in the middle of this. So I would say in this case, we are trying as much as we can to find the common ground. So our solution, our access management solution, is for on-premise and hybrid environments. And as you probably see already there, I didn't even write cloud environments, full cloud environments, because they are, in our market, they are extremely rare with full cloud customers. Either you are an on-premise customer or you are a hybrid customer. Depending on, of course, it can be more things in the cloud or less things in the cloud, but usually it's hybrid or fully on-premise. We focus a lot on the user experience. So our authentication is meant to be able to be handled by any user, regardless of level of IT knowledge, so to speak. A great user experience. We want you to be able to access your workplace. One of the key things when people are talking about like the cloud or the modern workplace is very common to use in all presentations. To be honest, it's a very almost too common word. One of the things that cloud usually say is that we just open your computer and start working, because it doesn't matter where you are. We want to give that the same without the need of VPNs. Wherever you are on your cloud or not cloud journey, you should be able to just work with your software in a modern way. Centralized, extremely important. While that probably to a lot of you already seems like a given, I still meet a lot of customers out there with, for instance, the worst case is 7 different multi-factor authentication solutions in the same company, in the same enterprise environment. So centralized, extremely important for a lot of reasons. And at the end of the day, we are trying to, this is how we see that security is made easy. Right. That was quickly about Pointsharp as a company and where we position ourselves, because I think that gives some context and background to the rest of the presentation. But today, leaving presentations of me and the company aside, today we're going to talk about the access management solution. And this is something that is quite, when doing a presentation like this, it's actually one of the hardest parts, I would say. It's not about talking about the technical stuff, because those, you can wake me up at 3 a.m. in the morning and I could talk about the technical stuff. But it's trying to understand where my audience is, right? You guys. So when I'm doing this, I also have to explain some of the things about access management, because there's also a very discrepancy in the market if we talk about access management or IAM. All these 3-letter things, they are usually have different meanings. So I'll explain in this case what the access management solution is and the pillars it's founded on. And for me, if we're going to do something that is modern, that I talked about, and doing that in the access management way, that is basically, these are the 3 pillars it stands on. These are the things, if it's not this, it's not access management, or it's not, at least not modern access management. So for me, that is centralized MFA. I mentioned centralized in the earlier screen as well. Centralized in terms of there is one solution that takes care of our multi-factor authentication, so that we have full traceability, we have full easy to audit. We know all the logs are in one place that can tell us what happened if something happens. Right. Secondly, secure remote access. There's multiple ways to provide access, and there's there are different ways that is good for different types of users. So you have to have something that are able to access your application regardless of where they're situated. Whether it's a SaaS application, then it's easy, they're already in the cloud, but if they're also applications that you have on premise, you want to be able to reach those as well. And bringing it all together, you need to have single sign-on. You need to be able to take these applications and then be able to reach them without having to ask the user time and again to sign in. That should just be handled by the systems or the technology, the underlying technology. So, and to go through these, I have to go through these to explain our take on it. And for us, when it comes to the multi-factor authentication, if you perhaps talked to some of us before, you probably heard that we usually refer to our multi-factor authentication as flexible multi-factor authentication. And what does that mean? Pretty words, but what does it actually mean? Well, that means the right authentication. This is probably not what our marketing department would say. If they were to explain what flexible authentication is, they would probably have a much more pretty answer. But I'd like to condense things into what they actually are. And in this case, it means that is the right authentication for your users, for your admins, for your infrastructure, and perhaps most importantly, for your entire organization. Because, I mean, usually we talk about security, it's only as strong as the weakest link. So first of all, we need to have it for the whole company. It needs to fit into your infrastructure. Then perhaps your users should have one way of authenticating and your admins another way of authenticating. So that is what flexible means. And most importantly, we do not dictate, our system does not dictate what you should use as your authentication. That is something that is should be decided by you, so that it fits all these needs that are listed here. Now, commonly, these are the four most common ways of doing that multi-factor authentication. We have the mobile apps, we have certificates, we have FIDO and OTP tokens. Those are the most common, and they are chosen out of the customer requirements, and usually a lot has to do with policies. What kind of authentication that we accept as a strong authentication to access our systems. Now, these are, as I said, the four common ones. But again, we have a huge toolbox of different authentication methods, and it's up to any customer to see what fits their use scenario, I would say, that would fit them. We even have those, if some of you in the meeting are old enough to remember when you had early internet banking, you had to like scratch like a lottery ticket to get a one-time password from a badge. We even have those if needed. Those aren't used very much anymore, but we still have support for them. In this case, this one is something that we feel is important to mention, because a lot of the way that the world is moving, a lot of these functionalities with multi-factor authentication do require cloud components. We do not. We can make use of cloud components, but there's no dependencies whatsoever to use any cloud components. And that strengthens that. We have a lot of customers that work in very high security environments. Think of like defense industries and so on, where there simply they're not allowed to have things left in the cloud. All right, that for authentication. We go on to secure remote access. So what does that mean then? Well, some of these also seem obvious. Anytime, anywhere is probably the most obvious one. We usually nowadays we think of being able to work from anywhere, and it really doesn't matter when. I want to be able to access my systems and my data at any time of day, and it shouldn't matter where I am. The second one, no VPN requirement. That is, as I said, there are reasons for VPN, but if you look at the industry, more and more people are trying to step away from VPNs, perhaps mostly for regular user access. Administrators and so on might still have a need to have networking access, but you try to step away from that. And that is where we have our gateway that stands between the hostile world and your infrastructure. And that also fits into, I don't know, this depends on your policies and your strategies, your IT strategies, but if you are on the road to a zero trust environment or trying to get there, this fits into that, trying to limit the needs for VPNs, and also in this case, though, being a policy enforcement point and policy definition point to be able to access the infrastructure. Right. And then lastly, for this single sign-on, well, it is pretty much what it says, right? But there's also a lot of things happening underneath. So easily said, all web applications, all environments, shouldn't matter if it's an on-premise system or cloud, and all devices. So here comes one of the things where we perhaps differentiate a bit. So this, when it comes to cloud environments, we are very used to having a system that can bring us, some wants to call it modern authentication. If you look at the technology itself, it's usually called federation and based on an identity provider. So when you have those, you're able to give access to different cloud applications, and that's great. But usually you cannot use the same functionality to all on-premise systems because all of them does not support these protocols that are needed. And we provide like a bridge there with the gateway so that you can make sure that if you have, like you can see on the image there to the right, which is like our application portal, where you can mix and match on-premise systems and cloud system and just give it like a place to log in the morning. Think about the employee starting their morning, logging into the portal and just have their applications at their hands in a collected way. No need to remember different URLs, and just having, if you sign in here, you have access to all of them. No need to sign in anymore. So that is what we think about when we think about single sign-on. And obviously, it should work regardless of the device you're using to access the system. So that basically, I should say, brings together our access management solution in terms of the pillars that I said that it's founded on, and what we believe in, and where we focus our development, and what we try to accomplish and help our customers with. But this is like any presentation where you talk about products, it's also at least for me, listening to similar presentation, it's kind of hard sometimes without context. So if you are like me, you're probably asking for at the back of your head, you're asking for some context, please. So I'll go through and I'll discuss first some specific functionality where I think we are extremely strong, and then I'll also go into some actual how do you say, customer stories, and talk about those as well to give some context on how our solution has been deployed in the real world, and some of the functionality why customers has contacted us or chosen our solution. I'll start with protect your Exchange service. I'll start with this one. Once again, without knowing where your email systems are, there might be some of you out there that are using Exchange on premise, and in those cases, it's probably one of your most important systems that you have, and we have this is one of our strong points, I would say. We would differentiate quite a lot in our Exchange protection. So we didn't think that the Exchange native experience was secure enough, so we wanted to expand on that, and we've done that for numerous years, always continuing to get that extra all the time. So first of all, it's for all your native clients. We believe somewhere that people want to use the clients that they are used to, and usually that means the native clients. So that can be like, the normal Outlook on your Windows PC, but it's also of your iOS client, or your web browser if you're using the webmail. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that you should be able to use the native ones. With saying that, if you are using an MDM system that has their own email client, we support that as well. So device control is something that is also one of our an important part of our security for Exchange. So to explain it very shortly, I won't dig too deep into any of these. Device control works in the way that it fingerprints the device that is accessing the system. So easily said, we have Thomas that did the presentation. So if I shoulder surf Thomas and see him typing in his password at some point, I do not, and then I use my phone and type in that password with Thomas Mail, I will not get in. The system will recognize that it's not Thomas' device, it is a new device that has not accessed Thomas' mailbox before, and then I will not be allowed into the system. So that is easily what device control does. It's also possible, of course, to look at different aspects of the device, so like type of device and so on. But that locking, that partnership between the user and the device is something that increases the security of the actual synchronization, in this case of emails. Content control, once again, won't dig in too deep, just want to mention that it's possible to decide basically what comes out to the device. You might have a system. We have a lot of customers, as I mentioned earlier, that, for instance, they have classified emails that are allowed on devices that are connected to the internet. So then we can filter out that type of content. But it can be like also we have customers that don't want to have any attachments, leave their like inner sphere, if we call it that. So different ways of controlling which content is allowed to be on different devices. And then one of the things that is also used a lot for is we have a lot of customers that are smart card only. So they do not have a password at all. And it's not possible to sign in any way without that smart card. Our gateway provides what we call a smart card bridge, so that you will be able to use, because it's kind of hard to put your smart card in your like in your mobile phone, right? It doesn't fit. Now you can place smart card on other types of form factors like security keys and actually get them in. But on the other hand, very few like to go around with the phone and then have to plug in something into that phone to make it work. So we have a way of doing that without while keeping the security on that level. Something that we invested quite a lot in over the past releases is FIDO Lifecycle Management, LCM here. And this is something that FIDO is, probably a lot of you already know FIDO, about FIDO. You probably might even use FIDO. But one of the things that is usually not that, one of the downsides with FIDO, the technical aspects of FIDO is excellent. It's phishing resistant, it is fast, it's built on a solid technical foundation. But one of the things where it's actually lacking a bit is it's in its manageability. For an end user or for a private individual, it is spot on excellent. But it becomes a bit hard when you have like an enterprise and you want to manage these, because you can see the first point there, self-service registration. That is how FIDO works. You basically go to a service and you register your token, and now your token is tied to that system, or there's a cryptographic operation being made towards that. So you register to that system with your FIDO token. Very good. But there are a lot of things that then are missing from an enterprise perspective that we're used to in an enterprise to be able to do. So, and those are the things that we've built. We actually discussed with one of the makers of these, and they talked about some of these things that are kind of missing. So one of them is add on behalf. We have the possibility to actually have an administrator, or it could be help desk or service desk, depending on your policies, that can actually register a token, pre-register it, or not pre-register. It can actually create a token on behalf of a user and then give that to the user. So think of it as going to IT and saying, hey, I'm new at work. I'm here to collect my computer, and I also am told that I should get like in this case, a YubiKey. All right, so the IT can then register that YubiKey to that user and give it out. We also brought in something that is called recurring authentication, and that is the way that FIDO works. If you do a registration, it is for life. As long as that token is there, it is for life. And we do not really believe in things that in terms of authentication or registration that are for life. So you have a possibility to set like a how should I say, a time frame for how long is this token valid, and then you can ask for something for another authentication in a special way to have to happen before that token is active again. It doesn't need to do the registration again, but just like a proof that I'm still here, I still have this token. So think of it, if you lose the token, it should not be valid forever. Pre-registration is another way. We also have a lot of customers that they do not have the possibility to have their users come to the help desk, like on add-on behalf. That is because they are on different geographic locations and so on. So we can actually pre-register these tokens. This is specific actually to the Yubico tokens, the YubiKeys. That is a requirement for this functionality, where we can actually pre-register them so that you can send them over mail, just regular mail or whatever transportation you want, but it's not active. So if that is lost, there is no token that is active in your organization. First, the user has to register themselves using that specific key that you pre-register them to. So that is something that we invested quite some time in because we saw that this is lacking on the market. We also got questions from existing customers about this. So very sought after feature in that case, and we can see that really bearing fruit now with a lot of people moving to FIDO. We didn't stop there with our, how do you say, FIDO integration. We also had customers and the market asking for being able to handle FIDO tokens for Entra. So Microsoft recently released their provisioning APIs, and that made us jump the gun directly and make sure that we could integrate here. And why is that important? That is important because if you are a hybrid customer and if you've chosen to use FIDO, you most likely want to be able to use your keys at as many places as possible. Now, every system that can support FIDO also has to have some kind of registration. Like I mentioned before, we include it. But we realized that when you have FIDO and you have multiple systems, you also want to register at one place. You don't want to register in a lot of places. So we did the same thing here. We did a single self-registration, which works in the sense of the user goes to our self-service portal, they choose to create their token or register their token, and then it automatically gets registered in our system, so it can be used for any of the software that we protect. That might be legacy systems that are on-premise, or it might be any web application that we are protecting, and even things that are placed in Entra. So that token gets automatically registered in the Entra system. We can also do this on the add-on behalf way as well. So when an administrator registers a token, we can make sure that we register the token in Entra as well. This, if configured, also if you're a hybrid join with your computers, if you're that far along on your hybrid journey or cloud journey, we can also get a device login for those with those FIDO tokens. I'll mention it as well quickly. We also have the same support for hardware tokens, like OTP tokens, so that you can register in our system and make sure that they register to Entra directly. So that is part of our Entra ID integration with not only FIDOs, as I said, OTP tokens, but there's also we do have those. While we have those customers I mentioned, like in the defense industry, very close to just staying very close to the ground, we also have those that are very getting more and more into the hybrid space, and we need to be able to support all of them. Right. Secure file access. I'll quickly mention that as well. That is also quite new. Access to file service. It is that simple. You don't need to have a VPN. You do have to use Windows 11. If you have that, you can just map a drive with a two-factor authentication securely over the internet, and you'll see it as like your, I don't know, your regular drive in Windows Explorer. Nothing needed, nothing extra. You will just see your normal, I don't know, it could be P: or whatever it is that your drive is named, and you'll just see it in your normal Explorer. No installation needed, no VPN needed, just built into the normal Windows client in a secure way with a multi-factor authentication. All right, last but not least, I'll take to probably two quick examples of customers that have implemented our system. Once again, to bring a little bit more context and for you guys to understand how our system not works, but usage scenarios and how these customers implement them. I probably will mention one or two that I cannot give out the name of, but this one we are allowed to use. It is one of our, how should I say, parade customers. It's SAS or Scandinavian Airlines. They've been a customer since 2010, so quite a long time now, 15 years, Jesus. I actually did that installation, so that is an indication of how long I've been at this company. If we look at SAS, one of the things that they wanted to do, they were using standard, like you probably all know them, RSA tokens, and those were quite costly, and they wanted to start to use software-based tokens. So like think of your OTP tokens in that time of day in the phone instead. And they quickly realized after discussion with 36 unions, which they had to appease, that this was not possible because you could not ask anyone to use their private phone to install something. And at the same time, they did not have company phones for everyone. First of all, we had to find a strategy on how to solve that. And in this case, we made it so that those that had company phones could use like a mobile phone to use for their second factor or their strong authentication, and all the other ones got like a hardware token. Okay, that problem solved. Then we realized we also have more than 10,000 RSA tokens deployed, and since that is an investment, the customer obviously just didn't want to throw those in the trash bin. So we actually have a system that can help anyone that is migrating to us to keep using their tokens. So they can use their tokens for as long as they're valid. If you know RSA well, their tokens have a max lifetime that you buy them for, like a license fee that you have them 1 year or 3 years, I think. Anyways, in this case, they had a lot of tokens with time left, so they wanted to reuse that. So using our system, they could then phase out the RSA tokens. And that was done by a functionality to us where we basically say that we take over all authentications, but if the user doesn't have a Pointsharp strong authentication, we can actually tell whatever system in the backend that we need your help. So that way they could phase that out. And the plan was the plan was to do this phase out over a year, because that was like, they felt that is reasonable, like one office at a time, then they have a lot of flight crew, it takes time, they're not often in the office, and so on and so on, right? They ended up doing it in 3 months fully, because when they calculated the cost win of doing that, they realized, well, it is so easy for the users to just have pickup places for tokens if they need. For those with the software, it's just an app install, and they saved a lot of money. And then it expanded from there. That is usually how it is. We have a specific feature that comes in, and then it expanded to become like the main multi-factor authentication of for SAS. So that is one example of a customer using our solution. I want to mention at least one more. I think I have the time for that. I can't mention the name. It's an authority in Sweden. We actually, even though I didn't mention it today because it's not that widely used anymore, we have a full security solution for Skype for Business. I guess that most of you, if you haven't used the system, you at least know about it. But they needed a way to secure the Skype for Business. So that was when we got into there and we deployed that. So they can make sure that they had two-factor authentication for Skype for Business, because they have a policy that says any access that happens from the outside has to have two-factor authentication enabled. So that being deployed for a specific number of users, not the whole authority, because not everyone had a need for remote access to Skype. But it started there. And today, that has, over the years, we have transition or change. So they still use Skype for Business heavily. and will do for at least for a couple of years more. But anyways, that's where we had the possibility, because we have a specific need like this to solve the Skype for Business thing. But then we transitioned into the multi-factor. Once again, they could take the multi-factor, which back then was based on mostly SMS, and since that got they wanted to phase that out to something stronger, we replaced the existing ones with our authentication, so that they're now using our authentication in different parts. Also here, mobile, they also have some hardware tokens for specific regions and specific tasks. And then they also now have started to have all their synchronization of emails through our gateway as well. So in that sense, we're using the whole access management solutions. Apart from, I mentioned quickly the part where we said about the identity provider. I mentioned that is being implemented, not as we speak, but that is on the roadmap. So where we could actually come in and become that centralized place for access and authentication. And while we got there, because of functionality that we provide, there was also, like, how do you say in English, like it continued the game where they realized, okay, we'll have one place for all this logging, one place for managing all these things. So that became like a, how do you say, like a golden story, if you want, where we just started with very small thing, very specific need, and then grew into something much bigger. I'll take one more quick example. Again, unfortunately, I cannot mention the customer name. It's within the defense industry. It's actually where they had a requirement to say that we are not allowed. We want to become more modern. We want to be able to have email on the outside in our mobile devices, but we just can't allow classified information on those devices. And working with in this case an armed force or an armed forces, that is extremely there's a very specific environment, as you can imagine. They have very specific requirements, and when they talk about things, they bring up, yeah, but what happens if it becomes like a war? What should we do, right? So they have very specific questions, and they look at risks differently than probably a lot of us do. And in this case, they looked at a lot of MDM solutions with containers, right? They contain, like, encrypted it on the devices, and they just ruled them out, all of them. And they said, if the data is there with enough time and money, and obviously they're also thinking nation state, then it's just a matter of time. And they didn't want to be in that situation. For the only option for them was to make sure that none of that information got into the device. And we could facilitate that. So as I said, with the content control, we could filter out all those things. But then became a problem. They said that, yeah, but if you filter them out, I don't even know that I have an email. And I might have to have that email. It might be super important. All right. So what we did was, in this case, just to prove the granularity of the content control, we allowed the email to pass out without any data inside it. So you got the subject, you got who it was from, but not the actual content. And they use this a lot for meeting, because they want people to get the meeting invites, obviously, to know there's a meeting, but they cannot include the agenda because it might contain attachments or secret information. Just an example of what we can do. I think I will wrap that up there, because I see that time is running out. And if I talk about use case, I could, to be honest, talk probably forever. So I'll just once again say thank you for giving me the opportunity to present our solutions to you. Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. And I think we'll pop into questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mika. So let me check the Q&A section if we have questions.
Yeah, I think there's one that is written in English also that I can actually read out then. So there's a question that said that I talked about certificates, but I also talked about FIDO. Can we use both? Yes, We also, while it's not my own solution in terms of the access management solution, there's also a PKI management solution where we can manage PKIs. So to make any PKI task easier or smart card task easier, we have full functionality for that. And those also support like for instance, in this case, if we take the YubiKeys as an example, so you can place a certificate on them that you can use for certain things together with the whole access management solutions. And you can also register that as a FIDO token. So you can actually use it for, depending on what you want to require, you can use both of them. So that is not a problem. As I said, while I'm not the expert on the PKI management solution that we have, it is still, it can handle anything that you can think of in terms of smart cards and certificates. My solution, as in terms of access management, we do support that as a type of authentication using certificate-based authentication towards that solution.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Do you see it, or
I can see it. Yeah. How is the support? I'll read it out so that everyone else also. How is the support for clients on Linux and Mac? This depends a lot when it comes to like. This depends. It depends if we talk about like web-based applications, for instance. First of all, like so you saw the app portal, or if we're talking like, then it's up to the browser. If the browser supports you to use a certificate or to use FIDO, which the biggest ones do, in this case, it's a subset of FIDO2 that is called WebAuthn, then it's supported. No problems at all. If we talk about some of the things that we do with FIDO, it can depend also a bit on the, when you do the registration, when you do the self-registration, if you also, then it's also just WebAuthn. But if you want to use the Enter ID, you also need another application installed on your PC, or not PC, I should say. Then it could be a PC, but Linux or Mac. But that covers both Mac and Linux. So I would say that support is good on both of them. Obviously, if we talk about, now I talked about smart cards as well, or certificates, there might be something I'm forgetting, but I don't think so, because this is usually based on standards. We try as much as possible where we can to follow standards, because that gives me the possibility to answer by saying, yeah, all the browsers support it. So I would say that support for that is good. Right. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, that's it for questions. If there's no other questions, I can.
Yeah, looks like there is no questions anymore. But yeah, we can wait 30 seconds. So I will use this time for one kind of information. I will switch to Estonian vähem kui kuu aja pärast Ülemiste Apollo-kinos toimub meie korraldatud Cyber Security Summit, kuhu on oodatud muuhulgas ka Pointsharpi tiim, ka Telia tiim on osalemas. Toomas, kas sa oled ka tulemas? Jah. Et juhul, kui teil peaks tekkima küsimusi või soove arutada erinevaid teemasid Pointsharpi tiimiga, siis olge head. Ma loodan, et Julia nüüd saadab lingi siia chati, kus te saate nii-öelda lingi sellele sündmusele. Meil on plaanis vähemalt 12 ettekannet. Erikülalisena teeb ettekande Lauri Alman ja paneel tuleb ka kindlasti. Julia, could you please drop the summit link here in the chat, because most likely I cannot do that. I can, but
I'm working on it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We have more questions, so it is good to talk, right?
Yeah. I'll try to answer all of them. First one, talking about SSO, do Pointsharp provide IDP functionality, or is a separate IDP required? We do support IDP functionality. When we talk about the access management solution, I didn't bring that up because I usually I try to stay away from talking about specific products. But the access management is there's actually three parts. So there's the gateway. I mentioned that quickly. The access gateway. We have the ID server, which is the actual multi-factor authentication, and we have the IDP. So we do provide IDP functionality. It is covered in the same, in the same package. So it's there. So we have more questions. Is it possible to use on-prem RDS with FIDO keys by using Pointsharp? Very good question. It is possible to use FIDO keys on-premise. If we're talking on-premise only, without any connection to Entra, then right now, no. This is something we're looking into. We're looking into giving actually support for accessing on RDS from the outside as well in a very, hopefully very good manner and a secure manner. And FIDO will be one of the parts definitely that will be highly looked upon. So this is, I would say, hopefully around the corner. That is something we're looking into. And then we have a bit more specific question. Does your solution support RDP pass-through FIDO authentication through multiple RDP sessions? I would have to look, to be honest, I cannot answer that. I'll be honest. I would have to have a double check because this depends a lot on the initial credential provider in Windows that handles FIDO authentication. So what I can say is that as I mentioned, we do use FIDO keys quite a lot. We have a lot of customers using FIDO keys already, but they're using it in terms of they're actually using the PIV part, so the certificate part, by creating a certificate on those keys. And of course, then it works like a certificate. Then you could both use it on premise, of course. And we could also pass that through to the next hop, so to speak, as a pass through with our credential provider that we have that supports certificates. Then we can pass it through to multiple RDP sessions after the first hop. But for FIDO, I'm sorry to say that I cannot answer you directly. I would have to look into that to be able to answer. So I apologize.
Do you see the name who asked this question?
No, it just says anonymous attendee.
Anonymous. So palun saatke see küsimus Toomasele, et Toomas edastab siis Mikale ja me katsume siis sellele küsimusele vastused leida. I just told that please forward this question to Toomas because we see only anonymous, right? So Toomas can forward this question to you and we can find out.
Ja tulen korra vahele, et kui kellelgi on veel mingeid küsimusi, mida ta ei ole tahtnud siin chatis esitada, et olge head, saatke mulle meil, leiame nendele küsimustele meil või helistage mulle, leiame nendele küsimustele lahenduse.
Ma isegi täiendaks, et kõik küsimused Toomasele palun.
Väga tore.
Yeah.
So I would also like to add to that I even saw that I couldn't answer, and even if and I had to say no in terms of just using the FIDO part. I can use FIDO keys in terms with certificates, as I said, but not exactly the FIDO part if that is important. Usually it might not be, but it depends on your policies. But that is something we're looking into. And with your questions, of course, this is one of the good parts about being the lead product manager. This shows me that this is something that would be important to you or of interest. And as I said, we're looking heavily on general into FIDO and specifically actually RDS at the moment, because we're getting a lot of questions about being able to log into RDS using, not using FIDO specifically, but doing that remotely.
We have one more question.
Yeah. Does Pointsharp support GPG and SSH key management? We do some type of, we do a little bit of secrets management, but it wouldn't be fair of me to say that we have like a full secrets management fully. That is something that we've just started. I don't want to, how should I say, tell you something that won't happen, but also it feels like I'm just saying, yeah, we're going to have it soon, all the time. The job of a product manager, right? But no, currently I wouldn't have something that is a full, like in that terms, credential management system. We are looking at that because that is also where we get a lot of questions that we can we have the support for storing, as I said, we have FIDO tokens, we have some secrets management for accounts, we have certificates and all these things. So it is just basically along the lines of where we're heading, to be able to tell our customers, yeah, you can manage your keys in there as well. We do some secrets management, but not fully, as I would say, yeah, that is a full product that does exactly that. No.
Okay, so checking again.
I think that was the last one.
Most likely it was last one. Maybe let's wait 15 seconds more. So
yeah. But it's
maybe
also if it's possible, I would say that those that talked about hopefully I can bring not too far along in the future, think along summer, I would be able to talk probably a lot more about FIDO authentication for RDS. Without any promises. I almost never promise anything because development is development, and when you think you're done, sometimes you are actually not done. So, but it is being looked heavy into. I would also, for those that feel that it's okay with those questions that I answered, like, well, no, we don't have it yet. So even this secrets management or GPG and SA key management questions, if it's okay to reach out to either Igor or Thomas and just say, hey, it was me, because I only see anonymous attendee. I would also be interested in perhaps giving you a follow-up email, if I may, if that is allowed by you, to ask the questions on what you would expect of what you would like to see. This is not a mandatory in any way. This is just my asking that I would very much appreciate it because that would also help me in the next versions that is coming.
Great. So thank you very much, Mika. Ja veel kord siis meeldetuletus, et kui teil peaks tekkima küsimusi seoses Pointsharpiga, siis palun adresseerige need Toomasega, sellepärast et Toomasel on väga hea ühendus nii Pointsharpiga kui ka Hermitage Solutionsiga, kes on maaletooli Baltikumis. Eks erinevad POC testimised, lisainformatsioonid, tehnilised demosessioonid, et Toomas aitab korraldada. Ja minu poolt suur tänu osalemast. Väga palju küsimusi peab tunnistama hommikuse kellaaja kohta. Et suur tänu, Toomas, korraldamast. Thank you, Mika, one more time and see you next time.
Ja meie poolt ka siis ehk Telia poolt ja minu poolt, et suur aitäh, et te tulite. Saan aru, et rahvast oli palju, järelikult teema huvitab, et kui on mingisuguseid küsimusi, olge head, andke teada. Aitäh, Igor, aitäh, Julia, aitäh, Mika. Thank you for everyone. Ja kohtume siis järgmine kuu. Järgmine kuu on plaanis järgmine üritus. Seltskond on natukene muutunud, aga Igor on kindlasti olemas ja Julia on kindlasti olemas ja kindlasti anname teile juba varakult teada, mida ja keda siis järgmine kord, millest räägime. Aitäh teile!